Stand up for righteousness. Stand up for justice. Stand up for truth.
I truly believe that thoughts are the greatest vehicle to change.
We do not care whether the cat is black or white, as long as it can catch mice.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Victory in spite of all terror. Victory however long and hard the road may be.
To those waiting with bated breath for that favorite media catchphrase, the U-turn, I have only one thing to say. U-turn if you want to. The ladies not for turning.
Innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower. It's a quote from American inventor, designer, and entrepreneur whose passion and creativity has impacted millions, if not billions, of people across the world. The co-founder of Apple, Steve Jobs. I thought this was a fitting quote for our guest today, someone inspired to challenge the norm, to drive shift to lead business and society forward. Our guest is Luke Sayers, AM, founder and executive chairman of Sayers Group, a modern advisory and investment business. He's also president of the Carlton Football Club and chair of Inclusion Foundation. Luke was previously chief executive officer of PwC Australia and vice chairman of PwC Asia Pacific, where he led a team of over 700 partners and 8,000 staff, growing the firm's revenue from $1.4 to $2.6 billion. Hello and welcome to another episode of No Limitations, a show where we speak to elite world-class performing men and women and unlock the secrets and influences that have shaped their destinies and that you could apply to your own life. For our first-time listeners from all over the world, please don't forget to follow on your preferred podcast platform and share with your friends and colleagues. And for our listeners in the United States, Argentina, and the United Kingdom, a big hello. I am your host, Greg Robinson, managing partner of Blenheim Partners, executive search and board advisory. In an insightful discussion, Luke shares with us the lessons, learnings, and highlights from a career that has seen him continually evolve, moving between continents, being appointed CEO of PwC Australia at the age of 42, and now having established Sayers Group. We hear of the differing approaches to innovation across the world, with Luke seeing shifts in mindsets and people willing to break from and challenge tradition. So sit back and enjoy the edge of a new frontier. Luke, welcome to the show.
Yeah, good morning.
Luke, what is your golden rule for living a high-performance life? And when an opportunity comes, the greats seize the moment. How do you seize the moment?
Yeah, look, a nice easy question to get into it, Greg. Look, how do I sort of seize the moment, and how do I look at high performance? I mean, from my perspective, I love opportunities. I love different opportunities. Oftentimes, you don't know what the opportunity may bring or not bring, but I love to try my arm at different things. And I think in life, sometimes you can just live in your comfort zone too much, and you can put boundaries or ceilings around sort of yourself and become quite complacent. And so I'm one to sort of probably just jump at those opportunities that I think will be a bit of fun, that I'll learn and grow from. Hopefully I'll also have an impact on something bigger or broader than myself, and sort of back yourself and have a crack.
How does that fall in line with the old man's words, keep it real? Yeah,
look, I think there's a lot of fakeness in life, Greg, and my dad was a pretty real sort of character, and just always encouraged, all of us to keep your feet on the ground and keep being true to yourself and work hard and have fun in life and be respectful in life and just treat people like you would want to be treated. So I come from a fairly sort of just real environment growing up as a child, and I've tried to very much with Kate, my wife, distill those family values in our 4 kids, and keeping it real is a part of that, because you can get over your ski tips very easily in life and start believing your own BS and start believing everybody else's BS. And, most times a lot of it's just not true. And so, yeah, keep it real, keep it genuine.
Where do you come from, Luke?
Rochester, Victoria, country town on the Campaspe River, up near the border of Victoria and New South Wales. A small little town called Rochester, which is, probably the closest town would be Echuca to it, which sits on the Murray there, sits on the border. Spent the first 9 years of life there, loved it, country footy, country cricket, growing up as a little country Victorian. Mum and Dad were academics. Mum taught at the school and Dad was the principal of the high school there. And then at the age of 9, we went off to Calgary in Canada, where Dad did his PhD in educational administration and Mum did her master's. And the 3 of us had an awesome experience sort of for the next 3 years, living on campus at the University of Calgary and learning to play ice hockey and flag football and go to this thing called elementary school and then junior high. And yeah, just fond memories of my childhood in country Victoria and also in Canada.
I hear you're a pretty decent ice hockey player? Or is that just a rumour you started?
Probably the latter, mate. Probably the latter. Yeah, no, I used to love it. I still do love it, but don't play it obviously anymore. Yep. But it's a fast physical game. You have to be able to skate, but you also have to have obviously good hand-eye coordination to be able to control the puck and move the puck where it needs to be. And just fell in love with it for my time in Canada. And then when I came back to Australia, continued to love it and practice and play here. And it's a ripper, absolute.
So what was it, Luke? Was it under 16s Australians team?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to play in the under 16s, under 18s. I think also under 21s, and a number of trips overseas to play in global competitions. Fond memories, great mates still to this day, and great sport.
What happened, Luke? Was it injuries got to you and you couldn't fulfil or pursue it any further than that?
Yeah, pretty much, Greg. I mean, it's, I wanted to kind of probably like sort of aspiring people in whatever sport it is, I wanted to play college hockey in the US or Canada and go on and try my arm. Just wasn't good enough.
Okay.
Had a number of injuries and so hung up the skates to become an accountant.
I was going to say, talk about
how good's that?
Talk about change of pace.
Yeah, a little bit of a change of pace.
What drove you to accounting? Is it the old one? Look, it covers me throughout life. If I get a degree in accounting, I'm set. Or what was the ambition? Because also, you weren't twiddling your thumbs at university in accounting either, were you?
Yeah, look, it's funny, Greg. Again, you trace it back to my mum and dad that it is kind of. I get the mickey taken out of me quite a bit when people hear I did a computer science degree and an accounting degree. People go, but Luke, you're not really like an accounting sort of person. You're not really like a computing guy. So what happened? But basically, my mum and dad, and this is going back, this would be late 80s. They firmly believed that whatever you wanted to do in life, if you had sort of hard skills like finance, and they saw the technology wave sort of coming, you can kind of pivot that to wherever you want to go. And so I went into a double degree and battled my way through that and was fortunate enough to get an internship at PwC and had an amazing experience there.
Well, that's after becoming president of the Accounting and Computer Society at Monash as well, wasn't it?
You've done your research.
Yes. That's a big achievement.
Yes. So I think what happened was PW, no chuckling there, right? It's a very esteemed sort of position. So what happened was PW sponsored the sort of club or group on campus, and as a result of that role, I got an internship at PW. And when you think of accounting and you think of computing, sort of they're not sort of what I see as what my sort of fortunate gifts are. I'm more a people person, and I just loved the people at PW, and that was different clients, and that was people at the firm. And if there's good people and good challenges and good opportunities, then count me in.
Yeah, so in those days, it was the Big Eight in those days, Luke, when you joined them?
I think it was the Big Eight that then went to the Big Six, and obviously now the Big Four.
And then you got the opportunity to move to the US. Is that right? With the firm?
Yeah, so I did my PY in Melbourne, but had travelled a lot, obviously, as a youngster, and I also took a year off through my university course and backpacked around the world for a year. And so I still had unfinished business as far as travelling.
Yeah, right.
I remember I went in and resigned and said I'm off. And the partner who is my mentor today, a guy by the name of Paul Brasher, who actually is also the Essendon president, today one of our arch rivals here in the AFL, he said to me, "What are you doing? Like, why and how and what?" And I said, "Well, Paul, I've run hard for 3 or 4 years, but I want to go and travel and do different things, and I'm getting married, and Kate and myself are off." And he said, "Well, can you just hold that thought for 24 hours?" And then he came back the next day and said, "Listen, we'd like to move you to the US firm. You can live in Washington, DC or New York. We'll send you across there, and why don't you use that as your base and work at PW in the US and then look to travel and branch and have different experiences from there." So it was a great move. We loved it, and we're able to sort of achieve both over that next we ended up staying 5 years.
Yeah, when you made partner there, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah, so look, talk us through, look, what's the difference between working in the US at that level and working in Australia? What did you learn? What did you learn about the art of engagement, the art of bringing people along? What's the big takeaways for you? Because this was pretty formative for your career.
Yeah, no, it was. I think there's really, really good things about American business and the sort of spirit of innovation and positivity and can do. And, for people that really want to have a crack and kind of don't worry too much about other things in the ecosystem, noise or anything else, I think it gives you a great platform. And so it's an amazing, amazing place to sort of be at the cutting edge of different business models, different technologies. I was in the telecoms and technology business, and I was able to sort of see through the WorldCom MCI merger, then the WorldCom MCI sort of combustion and WorldCom folding. It was the startup sort of mecca, and so the dot-conomy sort of was flying. And just to see the way in which capital came together with innovation and ideas to create growth is pretty special. And so I'd very much be in the camp of encouraging young kids to really go and explore and have a period of time in the US. For Kate and myself, we came back because we wanted to raise a family in Australia, and we had our first girl in the US. But, one of the downsides of the US business environment is that you spend your life, especially in sort of the consulting world, on the road. And if you want to raise a family, it's really, really hard to do that as a couple. It ends up being, predominantly the woman, in some cases today the man, but predominantly the woman that raises the kids, and that's not what Kate and myself wanted. So we came back to Australia, and I think one of the beauties about Australia is that you can find a greater balance as far as work and life. You don't have the travel sort of pressures that you do have in the US, but you do also miss out on some of that sort of leading edge innovation, ideas, technology, capitalism at its best.
And how did you find, as you said, the difference between positivity? And Australians are pretty good at knocking the tall poppy syndrome versus the Americans saying, get in there and have a go. And if you fail 2 or 3 times, don't worry about it. Now I'll invest in you. At least you know how to move forward. How did you find sort of addressing that when you came back?
Yeah, I think it's funny because I do think Australia's changing. Like, Australia is still a very, very, very conservative country.
Unbelievably so.
And it is still sort of the tall poppy. Absolutely is. And that's because, we live on a small island. There's a small number of people. In any one day, there's not a lot going on.
But that doesn't mean we're small-minded. So, that doesn't mean we should be small-minded.
No, I didn't say small-minded. But you know what I mean? Like, it's just it's a smaller sort of ecosystem. And we have basically 4 banks that rule the roost. We have a couple of retailers. We have a couple of telcos. We have, you kind of got these organisations that have all the structural power. Now, what is happening is absolutely, and I think COVID's accelerated this, Greg, my belief is that the spirit of entrepreneurialism and innovation and the willingness to back people to have a go is definitely improving. And, there'll always be big guy sort of versus small guy and, throw enough stuff and hope that something sticks. And, that's just competitive forces and competitive people. But more and more of those organisations and people are breaking through that ceiling. And I think that's awesome for Australia as a country.
That's all good news, and I agree with you, Luke. We'll talk about what you're up to in a few minutes. I guess that's one part of saying get out there and have a go and do really well, but am I going to pay for it? Because the other part is that mentality in Australia, which is changing. I'm interested in your thoughts on this and the reason why you set up your firm. Am I going to back you, Luke, or am I going to be scared to death again and back myself in my career and not take that risk because you don't get fired for using the IBM model?
Yeah, so look, it's not all the way there. And Greg, I'd say horses for courses, okay. Right? So, and that's good because not everybody is wired for startup world. There's a lot of people that want to go and join a secure organisation, get a secure paycheck, and do good work and contribute, and that's fine. That's all good. But for those people that have a burning desire to create something and put a little bit at risk, work their tails off, innovate and fight for every dollar, and fight for every customer, and do everything they can to drive loyalty. We want those hungry people, and startup world wants those hungry people. More and more people are starting to look at that as a pathway, as opposed to just coming out of university and going into a big system and then just riding that for life. And I think that's great. And I will say, I do believe that a part of that is COVID related, that the value proposition for a lot of people that joined those big organisations was to go overseas with those organisations, go to training programs overseas with those organisations, learn on some of those big global clients. If that learning pathway isn't there in a real and physical way, more and more people will look for other learning experiences, other growth opportunities, and I think that does push them into this sort of startup ecosystem.
Well, it seems to be the land of boutiques, doesn't it, starting to happen, like investment banking and advisory houses, etc. But the question I'm sort of coming at, I'm hearing it from your side of things. Are you seeing it enough from the customers willing to break from that tradition, Luke?
Look, again, depending on the client, I'd say yes. It's more in those progressive industries, Greg, the more traditional industries. State governments and federal governments, they are on the one hand encouraging and trying to accelerate local homegrown startups, local homegrown jobs. But on the flip side of that, they're the most conservative organisations in opening up their doors and helping those homegrown organisations get off the ground. That's fundamentally different to a Singapore or a number of the Nordic countries. Yeah. Your large-scale organisations, depending on the CEO or the executive, it will differ depending on their risk tolerance. But at the end of the day, more and more people are looking to work with great, awesome people that they trust, they believe in, and they know they will get quality service and a great outcome.
Okay. Let's just go back a little bit. So you're in the US. The family makes the decision to return. You're fairly senior and you're going really well. And you've got to settle back into Australia. You're going to build some of those relationships again, but you've probably got a choice. Choice is, do I stay within the profession or do I depart to corporate? Why did you stay?
I stayed because I had a loyalty to the firm and the individuals that were here when I left. They gave me an 18-month secondment when I resigned, and they were very good then in extending the 18 months out for 5 years. And when I was due to come home to Australia, the merger had just come through with PW and Coopers and Lybrand. There wasn't any partner positions because we were actually over-partnered because of what the merger had done, but the firm was terrific in still finding a way to open up a position, open up a slot, and let me return back from the US. So I felt a lot of loyalty to the organisation.
What stands you out, Luke? You don't make CEO and managing partner by the age of 42 by being subpar. So what do you think stood you out? Because it is a competitive industry that you're in, externally and internally.
Probably a huge dose of luck, Greg. And I say luck because I was probably courageous enough to take opportunities, but there's also in any opportunity a great deal of luck that gets played into it. So if I kind of look back and think about it and the different roles and the different things I've done, probably in a fairly conservative profession, I was courageous to try and change it up and try different opportunities. And then I got some good results, which I can thank partially to great people sort of around me and with me. And also, I think, a good deal of luck.
Well, why don't you talk us through some of that change? Because some of it was significant, as you say, to a fairly conservative industry.
I mean, I'm always looking at doing new and different, ways. And I'm probably, my teams would say I'm a restless sort of ideas and innovator and always looking for different things to do better. I like to be a good human and I like to get the best out of my teams. And so, we were pretty good in setting a cultural transformation at PwC, a real purpose to, yes, change the culture of PwC, but also lean into where our voice should help society and the country more broadly. And so the culture at PwC became much more inclusive. The culture at PwC became equally much more high performing. It became a blend of kind of head and heart, not just head, which is traditionally the big accounting firms. And so that was significant. And probably when I look back on it, that whole cultural transformation, which then led to the results from a client feedback, people feedback, growth, profitability, etc., is what I'm proud of. But it all comes back to the people and culture.
So what's head is your technical expertise? What's heart? For those out there who don't work in the profession but have seen the landscape change.
Your emotional intelligence, your relationship intelligence, your sort of ability to see around corners. It's a lot of that intangible that more and more clients are looking for in a world that's grayer rather than black and white. And, that's what you need to be a top advisor these days. You need the technical depth and rigour, but you also need the judgment, the warmth, the humanistic side of the equation as well.
So what do you reckon makes you different to the others out there then, in the sense of the firms that you're competing with? Because by this time we're down to the top four. What was the edge?
Look, I think all the four firms were good firms. I would say that we were differentiated based on the depth and breadth of our people, Greg, and the culture that we were able to create within the firm such that people collaborated and worked together across the various businesses to get the best outcome for our clients. And, it's all about people. Our game is all about people.
So what's leadership then, Luke? If we're on this and you're running one of the largest businesses in the country, what's leadership? And also, I think you were really upsetting and changing the sort of the pedigree of the people coming in as well, weren't you?
Yeah, look, to be a leader, you need to have followers.
Well, you got a whole lot of them there wanting to be led, probably.
And it's people can, and there's been probably more books on leadership than any other topic.
That's right.
But if I give you the Rochester Victoria definition, Greg, to be a leader, you must have a follower that wants to grab onto something and do something special. Not kind of is just going through the motion because that person's more senior and is just kind of, following the hierarchy, but, is inspired by something, whether it be a vision, a purpose, values, behaviours, outcomes. There's something magical that somebody says, you know what, I want to get on that. And I'm gonna work and I'm gonna push and I'm gonna prod to be a part of that. And that is leadership. Now, there's a whole slew of different 1%ers there that go to the machinations of leadership, yep. Knowing when you need to love and nurture and support and encourage a person versus knowing when they need to kick up the butt and some tough love and some real accountability. You need to be able to, with your forehand and your backhand, use your judgment on what you're going to, do to get the best out of that team or that individual or that organisation. And so, There's a head and a heart piece to leadership,
Yep.
a mechanical and almost a spiritual intangible that you need to have an ability to create fellowship. That to me is what it's about. And when you meet a great leader, you know, like, I want to be with that person, you know, in life. And in Australia, we need more of those.
Were you ready to lead? Were you ready when that opportunity came up deep down, Luke? And when you sat back and thought, geez, this is coming my way, was I ready to leave? Or I'm gonna suck it and run like hell?
There's a bit of everything going on. there's a bit of everything, Greg. You know, on the one hand, you feel ready. On the other hand, you're petrified. On the other hand, you're looking over your shoulder to see whether anyone's with you. You're trying to figure out, well, what are we trying to achieve? You've got all of those things going on. And it's your ability to kind of put all that kind of on ice and then to just methodically and calmly work through what needs to be done and who's with you and how we're going to do it, and to build that almost from the bottom up. Yeah. Because when you go into any role, you don't have all the answers. You don't even know all the problems. You're kidding yourself. And anyone that says, oh, yeah, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to transform this or do this or create that, they're absolutely full of it. Yeah. Life isn't like that. And so you go in with experience and skills and beliefs and values and, you know, a big heart to achieve something. And then you get to work, but you do more listening and understanding as you navigate your way through that, especially in the early stages.
Mm. A lot of the words which came up in the last 5 years are all around collaboration, which is all good. And everyone seems to get together and hold hands and collaborate, Luke. Sometimes I actually stand back and wonder, is anybody going to make the decision here and actually lead? Do you have a view on that? Because every senior executive you meet, I'm sure they walk into your offices when they come in to have a chat to you. You probably ask them, talk me through how you do lead and give me some examples, or what have you done, blah, blah, blah. Oh, well, look, I collaborate a lot. That's terrific. Anyone in the room going to make a decision? How do you ascertain that?
That's a great point, because in a lot of organisations, not just in Australia, all across the world, and, you know, decision making is something that, you know, people shy away from. And oftentimes it's the upward delegation, whereby, you know, people are afraid that if they make a call and it's a wrong call, they're going to get shot. And so therefore everyone just does circle work, and the decision gets punted upstairs, and then they get edgy, and then that gets punted upstairs. And, you know, oftentimes the poor old CEO, who knows most times the least about sort of the decision that needs to be made, is there trying to sift through layers of leadership to help on whatever the decision is. So I think you're right, but I think this comes back to this conservatism and this ethos of you got to have accountability. You've got to have accountability. But if everyone's petrified to make a mistake or to screw up, then you never actually get the culture of having a go and pushing the boundaries. And so again, like anything in life, Greg, it's the beautiful balance. You got to find that balance of support and encouragement to make a call, have a go, innovate, and be accountable. And my perspective is, if people are constantly screwing up and not learning, then that's no good. But equally, if people are just abrogating their responsibility to make the call and get on with it, that's also equally not as good.
So you made CEO, you, like you said, you're pretty young, you're 42 years old, you've probably got a lot you decide you want to get on with. How do you firstly then sit back and address what tempo am I going to work to bring people along? And the other part, I guess, as you say, people put these decisions up to the boss. Who do you bounce the decisions off?
I have a couple of Northern Victorian principles to build off the back of my good country definition of leadership. First one, get just great people around you. You know, people that have strengths and skills that are different to yours. Make sure that they've got, you know, the values that you want from a leadership team perspective. But that's your sounding board. That's your, you know, 1000% in a vault, talk about everything board. That's the team. and anything goes within that team.
Okay.
And so that's really important for me. The second thing I'd say is, to the point of tempo and pace, I firmly believe in sort of the first phase in listening and engaging. Whenever you go into whatever role it is, there's too many people that think they know best or know the answers, and they go in guns blazing.
Right.
I think that's fundamentally wrong. I think you have to go in and listen and understand and engage far and wide and build those trust pathways, not just at the top of the tree, but also at the bottom of the tree, middle of the tree, external, customers, regulators, whatever it may be. But when you have that fact base, move with real speed, because you've got to jolt the culture and you've got to jolt the system.
Yeah, right.
And so I'm not sort of we're just going to creep up on this and edge up on this. There's a listening, there's an understanding, there's a fact pattern, there's work, but then it's bang, we're on. And it's well thought through, the changes that need to be made, why, what, how, and you move with speed. And there is a serious tempo lift for probably a 3-month blitz.
Yep.
To quickly get through all the changes.
Yep.
And then it's into a stable phase.
Right.
And, that is when your leaders need to stand up and really pick up and drive the tempo. And so for me, that is the approach that I found works best.
Okay. So if I'm going to be part of your team, what are you looking for in skills or in characteristics or in values, as you just mentioned?
Integrity, courage, ability to speak up without fear or favour, robustness, empathy, want to have a fair income go, to do something special in the community and believe in helping others as much as, trying to do something for a team or for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those sort of people, Greg. I look at those characteristics and those values, and it's because of probably the level, but I take for granted the functional or technical or mechanical skills, because those skills will be mastered, through the various roles that those individuals have played. So I'm looking at more character.
And what do you reckon, Luke, when it really push comes to shove, and all the experience that you've had, how many people do you really, percentage-wise, do you think really want to give it a real go?
Great question.
Because they're hard to find.
Yeah, I probably, I think it's, and I've thought about this question, and I don't know whether I've changed my perspective on it, but I look at Sayers at the moment, my business, and we've got about 90 people, I think, now. All 90 of those people want to have a go. And they've left big, comfortable organisations, great global branded organisations in investment banking, in strategy, in technology, in advisory, to come and have a crack, right? So that's awesome. Now, is that still sort of 100% in 3 years' time? It might not be, right? But you don't get in the door unless you've got that burning desire to really try and run hard and create something. Probably in the larger, more incumbent organisations, I sort of think that you've got 20% that really, really want to rough it up and challenge it. You've got 60%, sort of that middle 60% that are waiting to kind of understand what it means, how it's going to affect them, what does it mean to their personal well-being, security, income, et cetera, et cetera. And then you've got 20% that are just there for the ride. And I think the trick in large incumbent organisations is to inspire that middle 60, because the 20 are kind of a given. They're out the door charging before you even point the direction or agree on what you're trying to do. They're self-started, they're self-motivated, they're on it. But that 60 is where the gold is. And if you can get the majority of that 60, you're going to create something special from a large organisation perspective, because of weight of numbers and the alignment that creates across the organisation.
Okay. One part of the journey I noticed with PwC was around the whole engagement with community. That seemed to be very important to you. Do you want to sort of share a bit about why that is so fundamentally important to you?
Well, I think it's just at its most fundamental level. You know, we're very fortunate people to have great skills and great educations and great jobs, and there's a lot of people that can benefit from that insight, that perspective, that experience, and we should never take that for granted. And so, for me, it's helping others with experiences and skills that you've got. And so one of the things that we did do at PwC was we encouraged all senior people to find a passion play on a not-for-profit board. And so whether it be a sporting body, an education, a church, a think tank, you know, whatever it may be, we really encourage people to be out helping those organisations with the skills and the gifts that we're fortunate enough to have. It was amazing. You know, we had over 1,000 people at the firm on not-for-profit boards, and obviously that helps the organisations, but also it helps them as well, and helps us build and develop experiences and perspective and context other than just the day-to-day job that they're fulfilling at PwC. What
did success in your mind look like, Luke, before you departed at PwC? What were you set out to? That's it. I've got to get this. Now, I don't know what it is, but what is success going to be when you walk down the street and someone says, "You did a good job. You're pretty successful." It's only you inside who's going to know it. For me, it was about the people, Greg. The people, you know, wanting to go that little bit further, and being given the opportunity and trust to go that little bit further. You know, we had, like organisations, we had balanced scorecards and revenue and profit and blah, blah, blah. It was that intangible that people said, you know, like, I learned, I grew. I didn't think I or we could have achieved that. And that's what has made me feel really proud of PwC, and long may that continue under Tom Seymour's leadership. You're listening to No Limitations with special guest Luke Sayers AM. In our next episode, I sit down with Hisham El Ansari, Chief Executive Officer of Bupa Asia Pacific.
So I think, you know, as I've reflected back over the years, there was clearly a strong drive to succeed and an impatience to make my mark on the world. And, I think people saw that, good and bad. And it was a fascinating experience to be sitting around an executive table of people who were largely in their 40s and 50s. And I was the young Turk doing an MBA. A lot of those guys got there through their experience and hard work.
Be sure to join us on our next episode. And now, back to the show. Different phase of life now.
Absolutely.
So you're roaring now. You're energized. I'm sure nothing's changed in that regard. But what's getting you out of bed? What really excites you about this new venture? And maybe share with the audience what this new business is all about. What does SAYES stand for?
Basically, what gets me out of bed is we're trying to sort of change the game in advisory and investment services. We're restless with the status quo, Greg. So our tagline is New Quo.
Yes.
Our good Chief Creative Officer, Russ Howcroft, feels very proud about coming up with New Quo. So it's New Quo. It's a new way of trying things that are different. And we're hungry, we're small, we're agile, and we're doing great work with clients.
Yeah, hold on. That all sounds great, but why are you better? I'm going to pay you. You're hungry and you're agile. Terrific. Why are you better?
Why are we better? Because we've got the best people, we've got the best ways of doing things, and we're able to invest alongside our clients and with our clients, which the big firms often can't. And so we're not a PE firm that just invests.
Right.
We're a PE firm and an advisory firm, and so we're able to sit there and invest money, invest time, take an equity stake, and work with our clients to drive value. So we are in the value creation game for our clients and ourselves, and that's different. That's new. That's different, and at the moment we're absolutely loving it.
So, what are you seeing, Lee? Are you seeing? And I guess when you did your business plan, which is on a sheet of paper, but like all these things when starting a business, they change pretty quickly. Are people coming to you, or are you still having to go out to acquire. What is you starting to see a trend of the departure from the big end of town?
Yeah, look, it's been fascinating. You know, we're coming up to basically 2 years this really September. Okay, so we've been in market about 18 months. And the clients, the friends, the relationships that have been willing to give us a go has blown my mind. I mean, it's been absolutely fantastic. Of course, we're still out, you know, meeting clients and looking at opportunities and so on and so forth. But more and more, you know, we're partnering, and it's not kind of a supplier-client relationship. It's a business-to-business relationship, oftentimes driven by equity, you know, amongst both of us, because we've got equity as well. We're not just providing services, and we're head down, bum up to try and create that economic value, either through trade sale or IPO or some sort of event. And so word has got out very quickly, and more and more people are coming to us, and that's a great position to be in. But we don't position or talk about us being kind of a supplier of services.
Yeah, right.
We're gone with the days of kind of master-servant kind of relationships. We want to partner with great people and great clients to drive economic value for our clients and for ourselves. And you know, that is unique, and it's been going incredibly well for us.
What about the boutique land when they, not yourselves, but others you probably look at and you start out, then the pressure comes on, these major blue chip clients say, look, I'll have a chat to you, but aren't you going to be less expensive because, you know, you're not going to pay the same amount of money as everybody else on the rent, or on this and on that. Therefore, surely you can sharpen your pencil a bit. Or, no, you're coming to us because we're quality. We're as good, in fact, I'd argue we're even better because we're nimble, etc., than our competitors. Where do you see the debate there? Or where do you see positioning of boutiques in the mind eye of clientele in Australia? Because in the old days, I thought there was a bit of a push down, but I'm actually starting to see the push up.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think there is a push up. And I think, you know, the market's pretty hot at the moment, so there's a flight to quality. And, you know, we've certainly turned plenty of work away, and we're happy for other organisations to do the work if it's just, you know, based on price. You know, we want to work with great people that we can drive some sort of economic value together. It's not about a winner and a loser. It's about both organisations benefiting off whatever is the piece of work or the plan that we're working on together. So from our perspective, we're not trying to be the lowest. Our prices will vary. You know, we may take some sweat equity. We may take some success fee. We may take some cash up front. You know, we'll flex up or flex down depending on what is best for the client and what is best for us. But we'll work through that with the client and come up with what the right combination is. And, you know, that's an important differentiator to the big firms that are, you know, really running hard on billable minutes. We're not in that game. We don't want to be in that game. We want to be in the how do we create as much economic value for our clients and equally for ourselves.
What are you zoning in on the people you're bringing in, Luke? They can't be the same make and mould from the competitors from the PwC or the old organisation. Few are really going to make it, aren't they, in the sense of really performance in an organisation like yourself?
Yeah, so look, we're honing in on great sort of investment banking capability.
Yeah, right.
So out of the Macquaries and the Goldmans, etc. And this goes to sort of our model of equity and services. And so, you know, that's really exciting for us. We're honing in on infrastructure people, and not infrastructure consulting people, but people that have been there, done that. Okay. You know, that have worked for government or worked for construction companies, you know, from an industry side, because infrastructure and precinct development is so big for the country over the next decade. We're honing in on marketing and brand people, and you know, we've got quite an exciting proposition and offering in our brand momentum part of the firm. Again, with the ability to invest in new emerging startup companies, whereby we're building their brand, their marketing strategy, their go-to-market plan, and obviously, taking equity through that cycle. So there's a number of areas. We've got about 20 or so partners at the moment, Greg, and we'll just continue to build that up in a sensible way in the years to come.
And where are you seeing the market as a whole in the next 3 to 5?
I'm optimistic. I don't think it's a sugar hit at the moment. I think there's no. I'm very optimistic. I'm very positive. There's a ton of money around. Yes, Melbourne has been sort of the lockdown city the last couple of years, but I'll tell you, I think it's going to be like the Ballarat Gold Rush and the Gold Rush days over the next 2-3 years. So I'm very, very bullish as people come out of this and want to do business and want to push their organisations forward. So, very, very optimistic.
You're seeing a lot of change in leadership about to happen?
I am, and has been happening.
Yeah. So are we.
I think that will continue. The digital revolution is on us. What that means, sort of up and down and sideways for large organisations, is pronounced. I think there's going to be more and more divestments, more and more acquisitions, more and more roll-ups, more and more IPOs, more and more delistings. Private equity will start to play a bigger role. Venture capital will become more relevant. We're moving, and we've got to figure out this Asian challenge that we have at the moment.
Yep. The
balanced way with obviously the security implications that are obviously there as well. But we've got to find a way to take Asian investment and to work with our Asian brother and sisters for the prosperity of the country over the long term.
You always wanted to run your own business?
Yes. It's funny. A lot of people have asked me, Luke, well, two things. One, you turned 50 and you could have hit the golf course. What are you doing? What are you doing? Starting with a blank sheet of paper. And through the hard hours that I've had and hard days I've had, I have asked myself that question, but you just push on and push through. But the desire to kind of do something from the ground up, I think, has always been there. Greg, I love impact. I love impact, to change something or do something, and if you're lucky enough to sort of impact society more broadly. So I like that. I'm motivated by that, and truth be told, I think that's also kind of why I like leadership and liked leadership roles at PwC, because you could have an impact rather than maybe a lesser of an impact. And so, that's probably why I've got into it.
You struggle with fear of failure? Wouldn't rest too easy on you, would it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I'm pretty driven, but I think failure is also a fact of life, and you're going to mess some things up. And I think it's you just learn and grow through it. You obviously build scar tissue, and any leader has a lot of that scar tissue because they've probably made a lot of mistakes on their way through and on their way up. I would have made hundreds of mistakes over the last 18 months here at Sayers, from little ones, recruiting a person that you shouldn't have and then having to let that person go, or setting up a policy that looks like this and then finding out 4 months later, gee, that policy didn't make sense. We need to go back and check, hundreds. But you can't get too hard on yourself, and I think you just got to live and learn and keep growing and moving forward.
Tough question for you. It's only early days. What's more satisfying, running your own show and bringing people on to that, that DNA we're all committed, or working in a large organisation and using, the language that we always use, taking you through that transformation?
I don't know whether I've got an answer. I mean, I loved my time at PwC. It's an amazing organisation, great experiences. I hope a few people think, still that we did a good job. And sort of equally here, I've loved, as hard as it's been for the first 18 months. I mean, starting anything with a blank sheet of paper, whilst you've got a global pandemic, is kind of not for the faint-hearted. Some may say a little bit crazy, but you're really proud of just getting a shingle on the door and getting an employee in the door and getting your first client and being able to bill a client and actually collect cash and it goes into a bank account. And so
It's a good feeling, isn't it?
I think it's the frame you set, and this is a great experience. I had a wonderful chapter, for the 30 years, but now I'm into another chapter and can't wait to keep, learning and growing and building what that chapter looks like.
There's another big chapter you're a part of, and you mentioned scar tissue and heartache and, putting everything into it. Carlton Footy Club. President. Jeez. Where are you going to take them?
Well, hopefully.
Hopefully. Oh,
hopefully, I'm going to take them into the finals, Greg. That's the aspiration. Our women's and men's team, if we can win enough games, we get to play finals footy. And if we get to play finals footy, we may give ourselves a chance to win a flag. So it's a great honour to lead such an illustrious club like the Carlton Football Club with such rich history over 150 plus years, an iconic brand in Australian sport, and I feel very very honoured. But you're right, it's the world of AFL and professional sport. It's not for the faint-hearted.
You always been a fan of Carlton?
Yeah, always have been. Used to love it as a country Victorian boy. It's those days at Princess Park, which is now Icon Park.
Yep.
Growing up and seeing the footy games, as a Victorian kid, I think a lot of kids and adults would have very fond memories of going with their parents or going with their father or their mates to the footy, and that being a key part of kind of who they are. So yeah, part of my blood, my passion, my interests.
Look, I understand the game. I followed it myself a lot of regard for the Carlton Football Club. The only concern when I've done a bit of reading about footy and the state of play of Australia, out in the bush, Luke, we're reading about all the money going into the clubs and obviously giving back and bringing the youngsters through, but are you comfortable where the game is at in the bush, calling a spade a spade?
No, I think there needs to be more done.
Yeah.
And, Gill and the AFL and all the clubs are on it. There's been a lot of other sports that have provided sort of competition. When I grew up in the bush, it was football and cricket, and that was it.
Yeah.
And today you've got a whole slew of different sports that kids can play, and parents are also, playing a role there, because a lot of parents think that a soccer or a basketball or whatever it may be is less damaging or less physical on their children, and so we need to do more to build up the grassroots and the pathways, not just in the bush, but also in Melbourne as well.
Now, do you apply a lot of thinking from sport to business or business to sport?
Yeah, I absolutely do. I think there's tremendous crossovers, because at the end of the day, you're trying to create a team, you're trying to have a performance culture, and you're trying to achieve a certain outcome. And whether that be in business, whether that be in sport, whether that be in society at large, that's what you're doing. You're pulling great athletes or great business people or great academics together to create something special.
Now, I believe we have stopped innovating as a nation. And I think this is because we are lacking strong and courageous leadership. This discussion, a lot of it is around leadership and high performance. That statement was made from you in 2014. You still holding firm to that view?
I actually think COVID's forced us, Greg, to change a lot more. And I think we've seen stronger leadership through a bit of the difficult times that we've all confronted through the pandemic. So if I was to compare sort of 2021, 22 to 2014, I think there is stronger leadership here in Australia. I think there's stronger leadership at a corporate level, at a political level. People may not agree with a lot of these decisions or the strength of leadership, but I think it is more pronounced. And I definitely think in the innovation space, through the COVID period, there's more and more people willing to invest and back entrepreneurs to innovate and bring new businesses to market. And I think there's more people willing to have a go because they're fed up with kind of the status quo. So I'm definitely feeling much more positive on that front than I was back in 2014.
What made you say it?
Well, I think at the time we were stuck, and I can't remember exactly back to 2014, but my My instinct is that we were probably somewhat stuck politically. We were stuck organisationally. I think there was a raging debate about tax reform, which had been going on for years and years and years, and hadn't achieved anything. We hadn't moved. I think at that stage we were also still talking about gay marriage and should it be a plebiscite or not a plebiscite, or just make a call and get on with it. And so there would have been a number of things at that stage that would have caused me to feel that way.
Luke, if you were to look 3 to 5 years ahead, what would Sayers look like? Where do you see the business going?
3 to 5 years will be, a business probably circa sort of 100 million plus of revenue, some, 250 people, very focused in the deal space, the infrastructure space, the brand and marketing space, etc. And we'll have made a large number of sort of equity participations, if you will, and be working side by side a large number of clients whereby, we are true partners in an equity sense with those awesome Australian organisations. So pretty excited about the next 3 to 5 years and, looking forward to continuing to challenge the status quo on everything that we do.
Luke, if you were to look back at that young gentleman who was going to be a professional ice hockey player, what advice would you give him now?
Train harder, be more committed. No, look, in all seriousness, whether it be ice hockey or AFL or whatever you want to master, I think it's really important for kids today to find a passion and find a dream and be excited and able to sort of, motivated every day to work hard. So I think the single biggest piece for anybody is to find that passion, find that interest, and then to be the best that you can possibly be at that passion or at that interest. If you're super passionate about something, you're not going to work. You're living, you're living each and every minute, each and every day, and that drives higher performance. So whatever that may be, find it and pin the ears back and go for it.
On that, Luke, it's been absolutely tremendous to have you join us today. Thank you very much.
Terrific, Greg. Thank you.
And you've been listening to No Limitations.